Hi, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be about the books that I read in the month of November. It is December 1st today, and the reason I've put off this video for so long is I was trying to finish Jane Eyre before the start of a new month, and I'm almost there. I'm less than 100 pages. I'm going to do my review now because I've seen the movie. I know how this ends, and to be honest, I don't like Jane Eyre. I give it 3 stars, which is it's a higher rating than I would normally do because 2 stars doesn't seem high enough. 3 stars seems too high. The premise of Jane Eyre, if you don't know, is a poor governess. After a horrible upbringing, she goes and lives in a school that is kind of the making of her. And after school, she decides to take charge of her life, and she goes and she basically becomes a governess for a family a ways away. And she's a governess to a girl that's French, and she can speak French, so therefore it's a great match. And over the course of the time, she falls in love with the man of the house. And there's a bit of gothic in here because there's like this this servant that they believe is like this crazy person, and she's going through and she is just creating havoc, and she lives upstairs and she wails and she moans. And then Jane falls in love with Mr. Rochester, the man that owns the mansion, and they're set to get married and all that stuff. And there's more to the story than that. I'm trying not to give too much away if you've never heard of it or have read it. It's a gothic novel, and I just don't do gothic. Jane is very... She's, I think, 18 or 19. So I keep trying to remember that. However, the women were much more mature then than they were today. So it's really hard to balance. Okay, she's 18, 19. She's got these romanticism notions. Just, it's okay. Just bear with it. But at the same time, you're just, ugh. Girl, just wake up and smell the roses already. So let me understand this book, Jane Eyre. Jane has a horrible upbringing and is determined, after losing her best friend, to make things better for herself. She gets a governess position to a man who has a wife locked up in the attic, fathered another child, is going to propose marriage to a wealthy person, and is falling in love with Jane. Did I miss anything? Oh, and Jane is miserable, happy, miserable, happy. Anything else? Oh, and Rochester is a miserable, habitual liar that we are supposed to feel sorry for. You got the summary of the book. But in all other points, as well as this, I was growing very lenient to my master. I was forgetting all of his faults, for which I had once kept a sharp lookout. It had formerly been my endeavor to study all sides of his character, to take the bad with the good, and from the just weighing of both to form an equitable judgment. Now I saw no bad. And when he proposes marriage and things come to light, basically she's like, I worship you, I idolize you. And I was just like, I want to put this book down. This is supposed to be a great classic work that everybody loves, and I can't stand it. I'm also not prone to romanticism. The romanticism you'll find me really enjoying is Jane Austen. And Jane Austen hated this stuff. You know, Northanger Abbey, which is, interestingly enough, like, some people who love Jane Eyre and things like that, like, Northanger Abbey is their favorite. But Jane Austen wrote that in total mockery of this type of writing. And even still, like, I like it better because you have the man in there, the main character, I watch it so little, I don't even remember his name, but he's in there and he's telling Catherine, he's like, you have this view of the world that's in your books. You need to wake up and realize that not everybody is as awful and horrible as as a gothic novel, you know, and there's not some guy in knight in shining armor out to rescue you. You know, we're all just here, we're all just living, and we're all just doing our best. That's my paraphrasing, of course. And I think Jane Austen in that kind of was trying to wake some of these romanticism girls up to a good view of books like this. So I got through Jane Austen, or Jane Eyre, which, by the way, I think Charlotte Bronte took Jane from Jane Austen's Emma and created the character of Jane Eyre. Because Jane from Emma is a poor governess who was sent away and went to a family to, I think she was a companion. I don't think she was a governess. And then came back with circumstances and had to keep, like, everything. I was just like, I wonder if Jane from Emma inspired the Bronte sisters, who really enjoyed Jane Austen. So, anyway, there was just that little thing. But anyway, I have 2 more books to read for my Read the Classics challenge. Both of them are Jane Austen. I'm so glad I am ending on a good note. They are Mansfield Park and Persuasion. I can't wait to read them. I need some debraining from this. But let's talk about the other books that I read this month, because I've got a stack here. Ugh. Okay. So, I don't know if I will put these in order. It's just the stack that I have here. I read Anne Bogle's I'd Rather Be Reading. She is the creator of The Modern Mr. Darcy. And I gave this book 3 stars. I liked it. It just wasn't... I wish I would have gotten it from the library, not put some of my hard-earned money out for it, especially when I'm in a position of really trying to keep track of what I'm spending. However, the chapter 8 made everything worth it. And chapter 8 is how to organize your bookshelves.
For beautifully styled bookshelves, follow this decorator's rule of thumb. Each bookshelf should hold 1/3 books, 1/3 accessories, and 1/3 empty space. Number 2. You're a book lover. You don't have enough shelves to begin with. Ignore the decorators. Tip number 3. Determine the method of organization. Alphabetize order ensures you will be able to find any given title, but this is only the beginning of the avid reader's concerns. The Dewey Decimal System will wow your friends and ensure they'll talk about you at cocktail parties. Organize by color, and everyone who doesn't organize their books by the rainbow will think your efforts are seriously misguided, but your bookshelves will be breathtaking. To relish the twin delights of baffling your friends and finding your books, organize by Trivial Pursuit categories.
And it's hysterical. It just goes through it so, like, through 14 tips, and it was so funny. It was so funny. There's definitely some things in here that I really, really did enjoy, but it was more like picking up a cup of coffee and chatting over another book friend. And so there's nothing wrong with this book, and I really did enjoy it. It was just talking about just the different types of books and how, or the different, I'm trying to figure out how, she takes a concept and basically creates a whole section out of it. So here's the readers I have been, and then she talks about how she wouldn't be the person she was today if it wasn't for the readers. Her story about living next door to the library was so inspiring. I am so close to the library, and I keep thinking, you know, if I was next door, like, how much more would I be reading? Would I be reading more? I don't know how that's possible. But maybe I would be purchasing less and borrowing more. And it's just an interesting concept. So, again, this is like 3 stars. It wasn't bad. Like, 3 stars is not bad. It isn't a meh book. I liked it. I just wish I hadn't put money out for it, and I didn't learn anything new, and I didn't think it was like the world's greatest book ever written. So there's that. Another for my Read the Classics challenge was Lord Peter by Dorothy Sayers. I love Lord Peter. He really just... Scoot a little bit. Oh, I was trying to hide that. Never mind. I really love Lord Peter. He he's a little bit older in his age, and he's just got some wit about him that I really enjoy. I've actually never read any of the books. I only saw the miniseries with, I don't even remember the characters. I'll put them here, or actually I will leave the link to the videos that I've seen in the description box below, because they are some of my favorites. And I fell in love with Lord Peter through those things. You know, she's on trial for murder, and he just proposes, like, every time he sees her, why don't you marry me? It's just so funny. I love him. And I was so excited when I got this book, because I had been wanting to read the Lord Peter. And it wasn't until I put this book in my Goodreads that I realized that this was not in a chronological order. Well, it was, but it wasn't like 1 through 15. Unfortunately, this book is like number 4, number 12, number 16, number 32. And because of that, I just don't feel like I get enough, like, a realistic portrait of Lord Peter. I really did enjoy them. They're kind of like your Father Brown, but what I liked about Dorothy Sayers is that, I'm trying not to get the glare, sorry. What I liked about Dorothy Sayers is that she was really good at, like, you kind of expect what's going to happen, but she knew how to write in such a way that, like, you almost self-doubt yourself, which is really hard for me to do. I read a lot of mystery type things, and I can usually get the idea of what's going to happen, but I didn't feel so much of that in Lord Peter by Dorothy Sayers. I really enjoy it. This takes place in the 1920s, I believe, and I believe it's in England. Lord Peter, of course. I really enjoy seeing how he deduces the mystery in each of the stories. So I really enjoyed that one. Another book that I read that was not on my plan up for this month was Major Pedigrees' Last Stand. I loved this book so much. This is about an elderly man in England. It opens up with his brother dying, and he's got to figure out how to get to the funeral. And he wants to be there. He wants to get the matching gun for these Churchill guns that his father passed down. And they're like the talk of the everything. Everything is revolving around these guns. So this Pakistani woman ends up on the doorstep, kind of bringing a basket, you know, sorry for your loss type of thing. And he's got to get to the funeral. So she drives him. And throughout the book, there is just, I'm trying to figure out the perspective on it, because it's not the first person perspective, but you get more of his view on things. So, he is just, you know, you hear his thoughts like, she better not drive, you know, oh, so careful, and things like that. And she just takes off and goes and does her thing. She's a Pakistani woman, and he, remember, these are elderly. I feel weird saying that, because I'm like, well, I'm actually approaching these ages, but they're in their 50s and 60s, if I remember correctly. And through that, like, he wants to know more of her. And so they end up talking about Kipling, Rudyard Kipling. And their relationship kind of sparks from that. And she's a widow, he's a widower. And there's, like, family issues going on that, you know, that will either tear them apart, or if they stand strong, it'll bring them together. And it's just an amazing story, just watching this gentle falling in love with Jasmania, and some of the antics that they get in are just hilarious. And one of the things I really loved about it is that this is contemporary times, and just how much of money and wealth is still a huge thing in England. I don't know if this Helen Simonson still lives in England and deals with this, or if she's just, you know, writing as if it was. I don't know. But a lot of that was so interesting to me, and some of the history of both cultures, and just the history in here is so enriching. It is so fantastic, and I really, really enjoyed it. I gave this, I believe, 5 stars. I believe I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. I would definitely read it again. There is a passionate scene. You don't really get to see sex, but it happens. And there is some language. So, anyway, really, really enjoyed this. I will be reading that one again. Another book that I read, it was part of my try to, I don't remember if it's a Pop Sugar challenge or something, but it was read a graphic novel. I don't do graphic novels, but I stumbled across this one. This is Ethel and Ernest, a true story by the man that wrote The Snowman. I don't know anything about that. And it literally is this graphic novel of these two people that met, married. She was a maid and he was a milkman, and it's written by their son. And you know, he was like the wayward side son later on in life, and it's such a sweet story. I felt like I was reading my grandparents' story in a way, because it's so fun. He's all political and, you know, frustrating, and she is all like money and household, and it's just your typical thing. And it's so, I read it in one night, and it was just really, I don't know what the word is. It wasn't enriching. It wasn't enlightening. It was just a sweet, simple, graphic novel of their life and their son. And it goes before World War II. So some of the money problems were still happening for them. And then it continues on. But anyway, it was sweet. I read it, and it was, I think it was 3 or 4 stars is what I gave it. It was really sweet. And I read a graphic novel that I didn't cringe at every page. And then the last book I'm going to show you is I've read the second book, Insurgent. I gave 5 stars to the first book, and I gave 4 stars to the second book. And I really don't know how much to share with you without ruining the story. But you can check my original review. I'll leave it linked above. And Insurgent was just as enrapturing, bringing you in, taking you through. I read this in, I think, in 2 or 3 days. Like, every moment I had, I wanted to pick it up and read it again. And that tells me that is a good written story. Some of the things that happened in here, I think, is what brought it down to a 4-star. And I don't think it was her better work. But I have book 3, and I wasn't going to read the 4th book, which is 4, which is about one of the main characters. However, I found it for 25 cents at the thrift store the other day, so I was like, might as well. There's a lot of language in these things, so I had some family members ask if their children should read it, and I really don't think that very conservative Christian families will want their children reading it. I thought it was really interesting. There were some things in here. I'm repeating myself. But the thing that really stuck with me about this is just how much of our current society Veronica Roth really puts in the story in like a fictional way, but it makes you contemplate a lot. So this is dystopian. This really just goes into like the aftermath of book 1 and how they're going to how this faction is going to survive, basically, and how they're going to rebuild themselves, and how they're going to capture the person that's making everything fall apart, basically. I'm trying to be very vague, so I'm not ruining this. And then at the end, there was like this bomb drop that I was expecting, but it still was just like, bomb drop, okay, what's gonna happen? Like, you're still expecting it, or I was expecting it, but still it's like, in some ways you kind of want it to be a different outcome. That being said, there was some surprises that I wasn't expecting, which I kind of like things like that. So I know that doesn't tell you much, but the problem is that I don't want to share so much if you haven't read the first one and you're going to go into the second one and it's going to get like destroyed or ruined or whatever for you. So I finally read book 2. I am enjoying these a lot more than I thought I would. So kudos, friend. That was good that you got me on this. So that is the other book that I have finished. Oh, Jane. If you've seen my video that I did earlier this month, I did a What's in My Mom's Basket, and insofar as those books, I haven't finished any. It just kind of got away from me this month. This month just literally got away from me. I still have that basket over by the dining room table so I can pick it up and read it, but honestly, every time I looked at it, I just went for something else. I think it was just a harder month for me mentally with things going on, and I didn't want to think so hard this month. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed my reviews on these books that I shared with you. Comment down below if you have read any of these and if you enjoyed them. I know a few of you that watch my videos did. Oh, I read another book. Nope. Freeze, Apple. I had an audiobook that I started and finished. Let's do that. I'm always looking for bookmarks. I had another book that I started and finished, and it was Addicted to Busy by Brady Boyd. It was an audiobook that I listened to while cleaning houses, so it has to be a short book. And it was so good. The only thing I didn't like about the whole book, and I forgot to mention it in my Goodreads review, which my Goodreads will be linked down below. He is a pastor, and because he is so passionate about rest, he pretty much preaches to his congregation to go home and rest, and will get on his employees when he doesn't think that they're living up to that. And I have a little bit of a problem with that. I understand that this is his church, his work, and you can do what you want to do, but I think that that's almost too legalistic for him. You can encourage, you can say, let's talk about this, but to pretty much like almost demand that this happens, I think it doesn't put self-discipline on the other person. So that was the only thing that I didn't like about that book, but it was really good. I recommend any Christian reading it. It just talks about why, or not why, but we are so busy, and I don't have anything to show you, but it talks about why we're so busy and what we need to do and his journey, and he brings in scripture very well. He's a little bit charismatic for me, but it was a well-written story, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. And there we go. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some ideas for some books in here. Here's what I read this month. I mean, look at that. This whole thing was to show you what I can start and stop in a month, and I almost made it. And most of the time when I start a new month, I am beginning new books, and I am in the middle of several, so you'll see those at the end of this month, December. But insofar as what I started and stopped this month, this is it. And it literally, I have a video showing you how I make time for read, and sometimes it means I'm up till 2 o'clock in the morning, and I do not recommend that, but I did that a couple times this month. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye!